Bizarre puzzles, thrilling action, deep strategy, unsettling horror, and bold experimental VR that only works because you're inside it. 2025 turned out to be one of the strongest years so far for the Quest 3. I've played an insane number of Quest 3 games this year, probably way more than is healthy, and I've whittled it down to the absolute best of the best for this list. Welcome to Game List Plus. I'm Josh, and these are 10 must-play MetaQuest 3 games of 2025. Make sure you stick around to the very end of this video so you can see some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list but are still worth your time and money. And if you're interested in picking up any of these games, click the links in the description below and use discount code PLUS to save some money while directly supporting Game List Plus. Starting out the list at number 10, Hotel Infinity. If you want to understand what makes VR fundamentally different from flat games, you start here. Hotel Infinity is designed from the ground up to use your physical space, which is about 2 by 2 meters, and it constantly bends that space in mind-twisting ways. When I played this, I literally got a ton of my steps in for the day because you're really walking around physically. The hotel itself is truly impossible. Rooms exist inside other rooms, doors act like portals, hallways loop back into themselves, and staircases lead in directions that simply don't make sense. It's so cool walking through the revolving door right at the beginning that has nothing on one side at first, and then it reveals this entire interior of this big hotel with high ceilings. It's just so cool. Not to mention it has some really harrowing moments near the end of the game that are on the outside edges of the building where you are looking down off the sheer cliff. So if you're afraid of heights, beware for this part. Visually, it uses just a simple, low polygon, bold color style split into 5 chapters, each introducing new spatial tricks. Puzzles rely on observation, levers, buttons, and environmental triggers that physically reconfigure the building in real time. It's definitely a short experience, which can definitely be finished in a couple of hours, but it is incredibly memorable. It's truly one of the more immersive ways that you can play VR, and it's an incredible way to show off what VR can do to someone who's never tried it before. Very quickly, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, All On Board. So this is what happens when board games actually work in VR. All On Board isn't a VR game, it's a digital tabletop tool for people who love board games and want the best way to play when real-life game night isn't possible. I played with my 2 sisters and my nephew, and we honestly got distracted just being together. Everything feels physical, grabbing pieces, moving them around, flipping cards, just like real life. You still handle the rules, but Smart Glance lets you point at any piece to instantly see what it does, and each game includes quick guides and the original rulebook. The base app includes classic games, and for licensed titles, only one person needs to own them, and everyone else can just jump in and play for free. Click the links in the description below to get all on board today. And while Hotel Infinity is quiet and mind-bending, the next game ramps things up with sci-fi combat and dual realities. At number 9, Of Lies and Rain. This is one of those games that came out of nowhere and immediately earned my respect. Of Lies and Rain is a story-driven sci-fi adventure set in a post-apocalyptic world where humanity has been forced underground after a long war with a rogue AI. You play as Adam, a mysterious data form with no memory, exploring environments like metro tunnels, abandoned schools, and a massive corrupted tower. The combat is grounded and familiar. You use a pistol, an SMG, and a shotgun. All of them are upgradable using cores that you find throughout the world. There's no melee combat, but the physics feel very Half-Life Alyx inspired, where you grab objects, throw things, and interact naturally with the environment. The standout mechanic of this game is the data world, which is this surreal digital realm where gameplay shifts into these fast traversal sections where you leap across massive gaps and clear nodes and battle a bunch of enemies and unlock changes back in the real world. Combat here is more arcade-like, it's faster and more aggressive, and the way the 2 worlds affect each other in the game is genuinely smart. At the very beginning of the game, you're dangling from the side of a cliff in a train car, much like one of those old Uncharted games, and things then just kind of unfold from there. The story is really mostly told from reading the various data entries as you go. The weapon upgrade system is really fun, and it's also really impressive looking as a standalone Quest 3 game, making it another shining example of what the Quest 3 is truly capable of. It's seriously ambitious, atmospheric, and visually impressive for such a small team. But if you want something darker, heavier, and straight up scarier, let's talk horror. If you're enjoying this video, hit that like button, it really does help the channel a lot, and hit subscribe so you can see all my upcoming videos. At number 8, Memoreum. If you miss classic survival horror and you have a Quest 3, Memoreum is absolutely a must play. Set in the year 2311, you play as Dr. Otto Hudson, waking from cryosleep aboard the UCT Century Dawn, a massive spaceship completely overtaken by an alien infection called Ichor. The ship is a decaying maze filled with grotesque enemies and strong environmental storytelling that constantly messes with your perception of reality. Even though the graphics aren't out of this world, the lighting and the way that everything is delivered to your eyes is just phenomenal. It even has some serious jump scares with things bursting out of pods and coming after you. It's pretty gross. Your main weapon is the Chimera, which can be transformed into different things, including a SMG, a shotgun, and even a sniper rifle, which is really cool. Let me tell you though, the feeling of getting your shotgun in your hands for the first time, cocking it and blowing away bad guys feels very satisfying in a way that only survival horror games can really make you feel satisfied. Ammo is fairly generous in this game, which definitely lowers some of the tension, but the game compensates with really strong boss fights, effective jump scares, and this oppressive overall atmosphere. That lighting and the sound design are also doing a lot of heavy lifting here, pulling very obvious inspiration from Dead Space, Alien, and of course Resident Evil. There are 3 different endings, plenty of lore hidden throughout the ship, and overall it's one of the strongest VR horror experiences on the Quest 3 ever. But if you want something that trades fear for pure physical movement and body immersion, the next game takes things in a very different direction. At number 7, Reach. Reach is one of the most physically immersive VR games on the Quest 3. This is a cinematic, single-player action-adventure built specifically for VR with a heavy emphasis on full-body interaction. You play as Rosa, a stunt double who discovers a hidden underground civilization filled with ancient technology and mythical threats. Movement is the core of this experience. You climb walls by hand, leap across gaps, swing from ropes, slide across terrain, and it's all done through real physical gestures, no teleporting required. Combat uses bows and elemental attacks, and Quest 3's tracking makes everything feel really precise. You're flinging yourself up on ledges, squeezing through tight spaces, and climbing vertically in ways that really feel natural once it clicks. I gotta tell you though, the comfort settings really matter here, but once you dial them in the right way, the sense of embodiment within the game is really amazing. And while Reach is all about motion and physicality, the next game surprised me by doing almost the opposite, slowing things down in the best way possible. At number 6, Quantum Void. Quantum Void completely caught me off guard. You play an engineer separated from his space fleet after a mysterious event, exploring derelict ships scattered across a surreal universe. One of the coolest things about this game is how naturally it blends playstyles. I would physically sit down to pilot my ship through space, then stand up to explore abandoned interiors, and it just kind of felt seamless. It was a really fun way to do it. It doesn't suggest that you do it like that, I just did it like that, and it added to the whole experience immensely. This is one of the best looking Quest 3 games I've played by far. It's bizarre almost. It's hard to believe that it looks so good. It has dynamic lighting, realistic reflections, CRT style monitors that are kind of everywhere, and it gives that contrast of that old school style with the modern technology. During on-foot phases, you explore and take advantage of every system on the vessels, including the electrical grid, computer networks, air vents, crew emails, chats, whatever you need to achieve your objectives. The whole thing is very non-linear as well, so you just kind of explore in a Metroidvania sort of style. Despite this being made by a very small team, the production quality is shockingly high, and it really shows what the Quest 3 is capable of visually. So much fun, and it's just one of those games that I don't want to spoil too much of because it has great twists and turns and fascinating concepts built into it. But if you want something more competitive, more tactical, and built around multiplayer strategy, let's move on to the next one. At number 5, Glassbreakers, Champions of Moss. This game proves that Quest native games don't have to look simple or feel cheap. Glassbreakers Champions of Moss is a competitive, real-time strategy game set in the Moss universe, where you command a team of 3 champions, each with distinct roles. There are damage dealers, there are tanks, there are healers, there are support units. You only need to destroy one of the 2 defensive turrets to make the glass vulnerable, and really this game is just so beautiful and polished. It feels completely AAA, much like both of the Moss games. It took a very long time for this game to be pulled together fully by the team, but it truly shows the extreme level of detail and balance that they brought to this one. Controls are fully VR native, reaching, pointing, grabbing, pulling units back. It really just feels like you're commanding a living tabletop diorama. The game blends MOBA-style strategy with miniature battlefield tactics, and every decision matters. It supports cross-platform multiplayer and looks absolutely gorgeous on the Quest 3, and it proves again how detailed and sharp Quest games can actually be. But if strategy isn't your thing and you want fast, chaotic, in-your-face action, the next one is exactly that. At number 4, Deadpool VR. This game is pure momentum, chaos, and fun. Deadpool VR is a first-person action game built around constant movement and aggressive combat. You play as Wade Wilson, dragged into Mojo World and forced to kidnap Marvel villains for an interdimensional reality show. Combat revolves around dual pistols, dual katanas, and a grappling hook. Once you hit that flow state, fights become fast, fluid, and incredibly satisfying. The campaign runs about 10 to 12 hours, and it's packed with arena combat, traversal challenges, and Deadpool's trademark humor, which actually works pretty darn well in VR with Neil Patrick Harris voicing Deadpool. This is definitely the biggest superhero game since Batman Arkham Shadows last year, and is a ton of fast-paced fun that is definitely not for the whole family. But if you want a deeper, longer, systems-heavy single-player adventure, the next entry on the list delivers in a big way. At number 3, Arken Age. This is one of the most complete single-player VR games on Quest 3. Arken Age is set in the alien world of the Biochasm. This is a roughly 10-hour adventure spanning 20 regions, blending exploration, combat, and puzzle solving. Combat is fully physics-based, where you use melee weapons, sidearms, two-handed ranged weapons, and each weapon type supports 30 mods plus upgrades, shields, grenades, and landmines. Enemies block, reposition, and use cover, so you actually have to think during your fights, which can't be said for a lot of games like this these days. The game is deeply VR first. You climb, craft, swim, mine, and physically interact with the world. Climbing uses wrist flick hooks that feel really great, and the vertical level design gives everything a real sense of scale. This game was actually nominated for Best VR Game at the Game Awards, and it 100% deserved that nomination. Despite being a port from the PSVR 2 and PC VR, it runs incredibly smoothly on the Quest 3 and looks remarkably close to its counterparts. If you haven't heard of this game, please take my word for it and jump in. It is a phenomenal pickup on the Quest 3 and is definitely a must play. And speaking of atmosphere and immersion, the next game might be the most polished experience on the headset. At number 2, Ghost Town. Ghost Town is one of the most visually impressive and polished Quest 3 games available. This was another game nominated for Best VR Game of the Year at this year's Game Awards, and in my opinion could have easily won. From the creators of The Room VR, this supernatural puzzle adventure is set in 1983 London, where you play a paranormal investigator solving haunted cases. You also happen to be a witch and a medium. Puzzles are logic-based, challenging but fair, and taught gradually through interaction rather than tutorials. Visually, this game is about as good as the Quest 3 gets. The lighting, the textures, the atmosphere, they're all just dialed in across every single environment. You can tell that it was handcrafted for the Quest 3. The game runs about 5 hours, but it's incredibly focused and satisfying from start to finish. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of something like the side quests in The Witcher 3, where you're helping out ghosts that have lost their way, but then it all kind of circles around to the main story between your main character and her brother. The studio that made The Room VR, A Dark Matter, really nailed it with this one, taking elements of that game and multiplying the concept into this incredible experience on the Quest 3. I did a full player skip review that you can click the link to right down in the description below, where I break down all the elements of this excellent game. If you love narrative-driven puzzle games, Ghost Town is an absolute must-play. But there was one game this year that I could not stop thinking about, am still playing, and will be playing for a long time to come. And that's what takes the top spot. At number 1, Demeo Dungeons & Dragons Battlemarked. This is the game that I keep coming back to that I truly love. Battlemarked blends the tabletop brilliance of Demeo with the Forgotten Realms universe of Dungeons & Dragons. At launch, the game includes 6 classes including Paladin, Sorcerer, Rogue, Ranger, Fighter, and Bard. You control character miniatures on a tile-based tabletop using action points for movement, attacks, abilities, and positioning. Very similar to games like Baldur's Gate 3, but fully in VR. It has tight tactics, card synergy, choke points, exploding barrels, chain reactions, boss fights that actually require real coordination, and it doesn't hold your hand. You learn by doing it and from other players that you play with online. It supports full cross-platform multiplayer, and on Quest 3 you can play in mixed reality, letting the tabletop exist in your physical space, even with multiple players in the same room if you have more than one headset, which is truly phenomenal. You've got campaigns and shorter quick-shot runs, incredible replayability, leveling, new skills, and this is one of the best comfortable VR games because it's mostly just stationary in front of you, so motion sickness isn't even a concern. I made a whole video launch review about this game where I talk about all the elements of the game that you can check out in the description down below. The game has fully voiced NPCs, strong storytelling, a promise of consistent updates to improve systems and add more features in the future. If you like Baldur's Gate 3 types of vibes and co-op strategy, this is an absolute must play. This isn't just the best Quest 3 game of 2025, this is one of the best VR games available, period. So that's it for the top 10, but here are a couple of honorable mentions that I really want to mention as well. Thief VR is a VR narrative stealth experience built around physical movement, involving crouching, leaning, peeking, climbing, and interacting entirely with your hands. One standout feature is the optional microphone detection, where guards can hear you if you talk or make noise in real life. You can also just disable that and still use the mic for smaller interactions like blowing out candles. It's just a really cool immersive way that I'm surprised they don't use more in games. And if you want to trade careful stealth for chaotic co-op fun, Deadly Delivery is a total blast and is easily one of the funniest co-op VR games of the year, and it still manages to scare you. It's a co-op comedy horror game for up to 4 players where you play delivery goblins hauling packages through procedurally generated caves and dungeons. You're racing to meet a 3-day quota while dealing with traps like spike pits, explosive skulls, haunted totems, and creatures like the Krampus. It's physics-driven and the voice chat is spatial, so if you get too far away, you can't hear the people that you're with. Much like the game it drew a lot of inspiration from, Lethal Company, it is genuinely funny and is full of those everything just went wrong moments, and it really is a blast. Every year, VR keeps getting better and better, but 2025 really did feel kind of different. Unlike previous years, we really didn't know what was coming up until pretty close to its release, and a lot of these games ended up being huge surprises, which was awesome for all of us. I have a feeling this trend is going to continue in coming years. VR is just getting started. But, that's just what I think. What do you think? What was your favorite MetaQuest 3 game of 2025? Is there anything that you feel like I really should have included on the list that I didn't? Let's talk about it in the comments below. If you've made it this far into the video, please make sure that you hit that like button and subscribe for all my upcoming content. And if you want to see my top 10 list of PSVR 2 games of 2025, you can watch that video right here. But that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Go try something new. I'll see you soon on Game List Plus.
I am a living statue, a work of art, crafted with both function and beauty at heart.
Sorry, but...
And you will need a pair of gauntlets to fix those wounds.